It's Peter Ferry performing music of Marc Mellits. So, Peter, do you know much about Marc's inspiration for these pieces? I mean, obviously, the Zodiac, but that was a kind of an odd take on Leo, isn't it? I mean, I think of Leo as being outgoing, expansive, and it was kind of more introverted.
It is. He talks about this Leo movement as trying to show a softer, calmer side of the lion that is Leo. And for all of these movements, there's it's so hard for me as someone who doesn't know so much about horoscope signs to sort out the things that are more traditional kind of horoscope sign characteristics for sun signs, or for me as I interpret them, and I imagine for Marc or for anyone else, I associate the movements and their different horoscope signs with people I know who have those horoscope signs. I can never play the Scorpio movement and not think of my big brother. And the Cancer movement is one, as a Cancer, that I feel a connection to. I think because I'm in part looking for a connection, and I've become so invested in the movement and all its little details.
And that kind of like almost boogie woogie pattern in the you can really picture a crab kind of moving around. I mean, to me, that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, and Marc talks about that movement too as the same way a crab moves sideways, and the way it kind of gets around is irregular. The piece is a little bit of a palindrome, that Cancer movement, and it kind of moves this way, and then it just comes right back to where it was before.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice. That's a great idea musically. So, and you're doing something with ringtones with this project?
Yeah, there's all of these different movements have such a distilled and specific musical character that I'm doing a project to record not only this whole piece, but to make ringtones out of each of the movements. So some of the ones that we don't have time to play today, but I can give you a little hint of the ringtones, is the Virgo movement. Or, let's see, Gemini. Or Pisces is another one we won't have time to play. And for this one, Marc Mellits, the composer, puts at the beginning, superfly, superfish, superflying fish. It's a really swift movement. And all of these work so well on marimba, in part, I think, because we have the marimba in our ear as the text and ringtone sound, mainly because of But I'm working on recording these and getting these out. If you're interested to get those, I've set up an easy way. If you, on your phone or on your email, send any message to zodiaclisten@gmail.com. I've set it up so it'll automatically send you back news on this as it comes out. And in the meantime, a link to a special private video from the making of this piece, from Marc coming over to my studio and showing me drafts and a first-hand look at that collaboration back and forth. So that's zodiaclisten@gmail.com is an easy way to get that stuff. It could be blank. You can send me a note. Yeah.
All right. Prepare to get a lot of emails. Yeah, it's a very cool project. So we'll hear more with Peter in a little bit here. Going to continue our conversation. If you don't mind returning the mic. Yeah. So we were talking about free will. Ooh, what a wonderful concept. And I love what you said about neuroscientists, because I'm a big fan of Kurt Vonnegut, and a lot of his fiction is really, there is no free will. That we're the slaves of our neurochemical makeup and really have no other things that we can do. And I mean, I could walk off the stage right now and just go take the train to Long Island, and I don't know why I would do that, but in theory I could. I'm going to. But I mean, but anyway, how does this all relate to astrology? I mean, how do you think about the concept of will in relation to astrology?
Well, yeah, again, it's a misnomer. I mean, it's almost as if we are working to free the will. But first of all, it's not as free as we think, right? We back to the metaphor with ecosystems. We each have our unique terrain. Like if your terrain is all like yours is fire and air, you can't be water and earth. So you work with what you have. If somebody's, or you can look at it even like a carpet, a tapestry. And this tapestry might be one person's pattern, and you can't turn that into a geometric modern pattern. So I find astrology is really about knowing knowing yourself and committing to that. And I think sure, there's many things we all can try, but there's certain things that we all will naturally be magicians in, and other ones that we won't. We can, slave away at for 20 years, and it'll still be somewhat challenging. So I do feel like we do best focusing on what we came here to do and knowing that. So yeah, perhaps it's not as free as we think. Well, although we can have fun with it, we can try all kinds of things.
Yeah, stretch that comparison to the neurochemical idea, and I mean, so if you're doing things you're not good at, or I mean, as you're developing different skills, you actually develop new neural pathways, and that's a really interesting thing. Is there a similar idea in astrology that I mean, we have all 12 signs within us? I mean, could I develop more of my Taurus?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So one way in which astrologers look at that is that we can progress your chart. One way to do that is called secondary progressions, where we would imagine that a certain number of days after you were born, literally, like if you were born November 22nd, 1967, we could count 52 days after you were born as symbolic of 52 years of life. And the positions of the planets will be different. And by virtue of that, that gives us an idea of what other things you may be dealing with. That doesn't mean that you're no longer the sign you were born or the signs that you were born, as much as other things have come into the room. Like this space has been here for a long time, but it's been reconfigured in different ways, even though the blueprint and the layout of it has been consistently the same in terms of like the exit signs perhaps, and where things are in terms of particular walls. But what's on those walls, what's added, that can change. And that's what astrology can do, to look at what neural pathways that have opened up astrologically.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
I was just thinking on that note, you can think of like the seed of an oak tree, which has the DNA baked into it, and this sort of timed release that's there. So it's going through these different learning experiences, as different stages of gestation. And each one is how we progress, that cycle that Sam was talking about, 52 days, 52 years. So yes, we do. I mean, I once did a workshop on epigenetics and astrology, and find that really interesting, how we can extend in new ways beyond our chart, for sure.
How do professional astrologers feel about the proliferation of apps? I mean, you can get your horoscope, you can get all this stuff on an app.
Why don't you talk on that first?
Is it a contentious question?
I actually think it's a great thing. I am all for it. I know it's sort of like a contentious topic in the astrology community. I find, sure, when anything becomes popular, certain people are going to do it right. Certain ones will gloss over important things, and they won't be done right. I mean, there's all kinds of. We just have to accept that as anything becomes popular, and I think that somebody who actually wants to get a reading, they're not going to get an astrological reading from somebody who's just doing memes, on astrology. They're going to do their research. And I do think the general population is so much more savvy. I remember when I first started studying seriously in the early 2000s, and I would be embarrassed to say I was an astrologer at a party, because people would think hippie, smoky couches. I mean, and astrology is absolutely going through this kind of rebrand now, that you can be any kind of person, you can be any color, any race, come from any background, and you can be an astrologer. It's really, apps have democratized it, and they've given everybody way beyond a base level sun sign.
I was on a panel with a couple of journalists a few years back, and they were talking about blogging. And he was saying, well, I mean, I'm a professional writer. I spent my whole life doing it. This is what I do. Would you go into a restaurant and you want some rando to cook your food? No, you want a chef. I mean, do you feel the same way, more or less? I mean, you spend an awful lot of time doing this. It's a complex science. And, it's certainly, I mean, I guess it depends on what people want, too, like you're saying. I mean, some people just want a quick horoscope. It's fun for them. But for people who delve in deeper, they should absolutely go deeper than an app.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing. I think they should be willing to look beyond just what's on their phone. And like my problem with apps is that sometimes the information can be wrong. I'm a professional astrologer, and I downloaded, I won't say the app. I don't want to get in trouble with anybody, but I downloaded the app and, put in my information in time. It was all wrong. So I'm like, well, I mean, like, I know my chart, and what you're saying is not my chart. What's going on? So I did call the company and talk to the company, and they said they would, fix it and work on doing something better. But I think the general public doesn't know. And I think that's the key thing, is to kind of do due diligence. And I don't think anything can supplant a living being.
So you know where the planets are in any given moment. Is that accurate to say?
I don't know about that. What
do you know where the planets are
any
right
given
now?
moment? No, I don't know if it's any given moment.
I can't tell you the exact degrees, but the signs.
Yeah, maybe the signs, but sometimes I unplug too. Sometimes I don't know where the moon is. I used to have a guy who would call me randomly, literally, and be like, "Where is the moon?"
Well,
And I'm like,
He's out here, actually. He's in the
right.
audience.
He called me on Thanksgiving, and I was like, in the sky.
Yeah, right. I'm eating.
Call me.
Maybe this is a good time to talk about the sky tonight.
Yeah,
Right,
I was curious. We're launching a new venture here. All throughout history, right? People have consulted the skies if they're launching something new. So how are the stars my friends? Or
You
do I
got
have
a
to take
new
them out
moon.
back
You
tonight
picked it
and
up.
beat 'em up?
You picked on the day of or night of a new moon, right?
It's
so that's
perfect.
it's really perfect. I was like, did you have an astrologer pick this for you?
No, I chose it out of 4 dates. I was like, that one.
Okay.
But not only is it a new moon, it's a new moon in the sign of Pisces, the sign that rules music and the arts, beauty, transcendence, and here you are with a musical venture.
With a Venus in Pisces, no less.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
That's
Well,
just a little
Venus
flavor
is
of
in
Aries, you moved, right?
Yeah.
just to kind of sex it up, or what does the
well,
Venus add
Venus
to it?
is
you
in
also,
Aries, yeah,
in Aries,
absolutely,
right? But
yeah.
you also have Neptune. The moon is going to go to Neptune, and so that also creates more of like a mystique and mysteriousness. So that's
All
good.
right. Great.
There's
All right.
no better
I'm
time
very
to launch
pleased.
something than a new moon. So
Right.
well
You-
done.
And you did it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. Let's have some more music. So we're going to bring Peter Ferry back. He's going to perform 4 more pieces by
Cool.
Marc Mellits. Yeah, this time around we're going to hear Libra, Capricorn, Sagittarius, and give it to me, Scorpio, your brother.
All right.
All right, big hand for Peter Ferry. it's Peter Ferry performing music with Marc Mellits. Let's go ahead and bring the quartet on the stage. Where is Oso Quartet? Let's just bring them out and get them on the stage.